The birthplace of the Bohemian Revolution. From Cowork 591 Studios, we are the Bohemian Underground with producer Blake Tempus and co-host Dale Rueber. I'm Jim Gillespie, and this is the Jesup News for April 14th, 2025. It's almost Easter. Tonight we're sponsored by Mickey D's Pizza and Lobster. The Farrells are kind sponsors of the podcast. Include them at your wedding, graduation, or festival plans. Don't wait, their schedule's filling up for 2025. And here's the latest news. Throughout their events this summer, they are carrying some of the inventory of the Steve Brown Arts Center with them and show some of the Steve Brown Arts Center's collection at their shows.
That's kind of nice.
Yeah. So thanks as always to the Farrells. They are great supporters. Also, another sponsor who's been with us since the birth of the Steve Brown Arts Center is Derek's Repair, located in Jesup, Iowa. Contact Derek Marty for your car repair needs. Derek, you've always been so kind to us, and thank you for listening. You're there for us all the time. Also, check out the podcast, What Is Up, with our friend Bubba Seaman up in Fairbank, Iowa. I know he's a Wapsie Valley warrior, but we won't hold that against him. Yeah. Check out Bubba Seaman's podcast. He does a nice job. Tonight we have on our show Mayor Chris Even. We have Fritz Kies. We're going to talk food. I enjoy talking food, Dale.
I do too.
I'm going to talk about some events coming up in the future, and we're going to look at a possible event I want to talk to Dale about.
A
possible event. Okay. We're going to talk about Farmers Day. Farmers Day's got breaking news for us. I can see Fritz walking across the street right now as we speak, right here at Cowork 591 Studios. So I'm excited to see Fritz as he walks in the door. Good to see you, Fritz. Thank you.
He's our favorite veteran with a handlebar mustache.
He is. So
he's scruffier than the last time he was here, though.
I'm trying to emulate you. Then we can be twins when we're walking down the street.
That looks like a lot of work, though.
Why don't you guys emulate me is what I want to know. That disappoints me, Fritz.
My barber would be extreme.
Well, we'll get you on a mic here. We're on the air, so take your time, and we have a few things to talk about here as you get ready. Don't forget, we have an artist collaboration coming up the 28th of April at 6:30 at the the American Lutheran Church here in town. That is for all artists. That's for musicians. That's for actors, that's for writers, that's for painters. All artists are welcome. We had a great get-together with that. We look forward to that. Please stop down and meet those guys. Our second guest also walked in. Sit down, Fritz. You're our guest here.
We have our Veterans Park meeting tonight at 6.
Oh, good. We'll get you out of here because Chris is also going to be on the air.
Does he have to be at that meeting also?
He can be.
Okay, but he's not. Okay.
All right.
Just trying to schedule our time, see. So, okay, yeah.
A guest that's been on here now, what, is this your fourth time? 4 times.
We'll have to get him a shirt next time. We will.
Like
you're doing Saturday Night Live.
I will. I've got one. The trouble is it's 3X, and what do you wear? About a medium? You wear
a large, just to fit my shoulder.
A little large.
Yeah, the shoulder.
Okay.
We need to bulk him up a little bit.
There you go.
Yeah, grow into this shirt.
But Fritz, we wanted to talk to you tonight a little bit about how the park is coming. How's things going with the park down there?
Good. We've obviously you've driven by, you've seen that the ground has been broken. The footings have been poured. They were poured last fall for the main stones to go up. And we have ordered the pavers. They are being engraved right now. We have over 250, the various 3 sizes.
Wow.
That's really good.
Yeah. I'm very pleased with that.
Sure.
And it's like 80 16 by 16s that and the 8 by 8s, and then over 100 in the 4 by 8s.
Yeah.
Jeez, yeah.
So we're working with Eli Truex for the concrete. He's poured some samples for us and the city council and the committee to look at to determine if that's the right color, because the concrete is actually being colorized and poured, so it's going to be a permanent color. And so he gave us some options to look at.
Okay.
And that was done a couple of weeks ago. The samples are down there now. We're going to be talking about that. And then we're at his schedule
Sure.
for when that's going to be poured.
Yeah.
But you're ready to pour stuff.
We're ready to start pouring for the main circle. And as far as the stones, they have been ordered. I just had conversations with the monument company today that asking when we were going to be ready for them. So they're not done yet, but they're in order. They have been for several months now.
Sure.
And we are up to 11 benches being ordered.
Oh my!
So yeah, that's been very successful. Yeah. And we have room for 12, possibly 14, depends on how wide we go with the parking lot. So that will determine if we're almost sold out for the benches or if we're able to add a couple more.
Now, we might have to be there for the opening ceremonies.
Well, we're going to talk about that because, as Dale knows, that we were hoping to have this year's Farmers Day be the theme for it, but we just thought that was too aggressive in timing.
Yeah.
And so that's been pushed back. So exactly when we're going to have that opening dedication for it, a lot will be determined by when the benches come in, the stones come in, when we get everything poured and installed.
Yeah. It's better not to rush it.
Yeah.
That's the way we thought. Yeah.
Now, Fritz, last time we spoke, you talked about getting a retired weapon from the
We have
military.
requested a military surplus piece of equipment, and at last check we were 300th on the list. I haven't checked lately, but that was a couple months ago. I can't imagine it would move up too much in order. So maybe it has. We'll check again here shortly. That's kind of on our list to talk about tonight. We don't necessarily have an option. They say this is what we have available. We've requested different things, but it's kind of like first come, first serve. Are you interested in this piece of equipment? Then we have to have it. It has to be demilitarized and safe to put in the public. And then we have to have a concrete foundation put in for it to set on. And so we don't know what it's going to be. So we're still hoping, but that's part of the Veterans Park plan, is to have some kind of military surplus equipment.
Well, the way the president keeps firing generals and admirals, maybe you get one of those that come down and stand there in the middle and
Yeah,
say,
a couple
as a surplus
surplus
military,
stars and just put a little flag at half staff. Yes.
Yeah.
So, what else would you like us to know about that, Fritz? How?
We are still taking orders. If you want to order a paver, you still can do it. The City Hall has the brochures, so just go in there and fill it out. Until we actually start putting in the concrete foundation for the paver stones and the sidewalk to be installed, and then we install the pavers, we are taking orders up until then. In fact, we are putting quite a number of excess blank pavers in there for future generations.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
So even if we have it installed and people see it and look and impressed with it, they can still come in and order, and then it'll just be on a 1 or 2 piece basis.
Sure.
Pull an old one out and put the engraved one in.
Is it hard to, forgive me, learn about the cost? Is it online? I guess
The cost,
is what I
yes.
want to know.
In fact, I was just speaking with Coley Mead, the city clerk, about where we are at funding-wise. And we have an estimate. We have some bills that have come in and have been paid, and we have a nice amount that has been donated both by the city, the Lions Club, and citizens in the community that have just made donations. Plus, there is a small funding from the pavers that we've ordered, as well as the bench. We didn't make a lot, but just enough to make it so that it's kind of a fundraiser when someone buys that. But we have a lot of unknowns and costs yet, because concrete has went up so much. We don't know how much it's going to cost us for that surplus military equipment to be brought in, because we have to pay the transportation and pick it up and then and set it. So that's one of the factors. The flagpoles, we are going to be putting in sizable flagpoles, not quite like a Camping World or the Perkins where you can see it for miles and miles away, but it's going to be impressive when you come in up 6th Street. And then, so we have to purchase those. And then there's a few other minor costs, but right now we are on track, but we are still waiting to see the costs of the concrete and other incidentals that come in.
Is there any place they can go online?
There is a Facebook page. I'm not sure how much it's been updated lately. We can add some more things. We're going to put the list of people that have ordered a paver on there so they can look and see. I don't think we have a website per se. It's through the Facebook Veterans Park page.
Yeah, so it's
and then the city,
So Jesup Veterans Park.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And like I said, this is kind of one of the, I don't know if you can see that, but I'll show it up to the camera. This is kind of what the design for the sidewalk is going to look like. And so all the pavers will be engraved along in here, and then mainly this over here is going to be the sidewalk right up here.
Where's South Street then?
This is, South Street is along here, and this is 6th Street.
Yeah, okay.
So, and then here is the main section where the circle is going to be with the 6 branches of the service, their stone and the main stone and the flags behind that. So that's kind of design we're looking at. And like I said, some of the other costs I think we kind of estimate, but it's still unknown yet. I had a conversation with someone today who hadn't ordered a paver yet, and he was going to do so, and he asked how we were in funding, and he said, if you need assistance, let him know. So, and I'm sure he'd be willing. He's donated to many things in the past, and so it was very great, grateful of him to call
nice
and
to know
add.
that there's
there's still people out there. He's a veteran.
Yeah.
Semper Fi. He's a Marine, just like you were, Dale.
Okay, I know just who. No, I don't know. I said, who would I know that has money that was in the Marine Corps? Nobody. But,
Bob Parsons. Bob Parsons, founder of GoDaddy.com.
Oh, sure.
He made billions, and now he makes PXG golf equipment. And anyway, he's a big philanthropist, and he does a lot for the Marine Corps League and everything else. So look up Bob Parsons. He's a good patriot.
Oh, that is awesome. That's awesome. Well, Fritz, we'll get you out of here. We know you have another meeting, so
2 of them.
tonight. Really?
The Veterans Park, followed by the regular Legion, American Legion meeting following that. So,
all right. Well, thank you so much.
Man, since you've been here, you've helped this community an awful lot. So
thank you.
You work hard. So
so happy to be here, and I'll be happy to come back and say when we're going to pour it, and people can come look at it. And when we have an actual date for the dedication, it might be Veterans Day of this year, or it could be next year, because next year is a 250th anniversary, 1776. It'll be 2026, so maybe it'll be July 4th, and we'll kind of incorporate that.
Farmers Day is working. We have a veterans. It's a display, a museum kind of truck that opens up, and then we're hoping we'll know by September if we get this Vietnam Wall in.
The traveling wall, yes.
Yeah, and there's a lot to that to get them people to. I mean,
yes.
But we have Michael Fettgator working on it, and I'm sure he'll do it. He'll get him in here one way or the other.
Shout out to Mike. He's done a great job helping us with that.
Yeah.
We have other people on the committee, and I'll also like to thank John Crawford. He has been coordinating all of the paver. He has created this spreadsheet that we turn into the engravers. He's got it down alphabetically by size, and then who's supposed to go with who, because we have several families that have purchased pavers, and they want to be around their other families. A couple class of 66, I believe, has done one, and 65. They have all of their classmates that were veterans are all surrounding it. So he's got a list of these all have to go next to each other. So
I have a picture in my head of Fred Flintstone with a mallet and a chisel. But did you like laser kind of things, or do you know how they do it?
It's actually, I talked to Signs and More, and they create a stencil for each individual paver.
Oh, okay.
Then they sandblast it out, just like you would do on a monument headstone out at the cemetery. They sandblast it out. Then they have to paint it so that the lettering stands out.
Oh, there's a lot of work to
It's
that, isn't it?
labor intensive.
Yeah, okay.
And that's
I
one
did
of
not realize that.
I didn't either until he explained it all to me, and that's why it costs so much for these engravings each. And, it just adds up all the costs.
Oh,
But
yeah,
like I said, we're doing good, but there's still a lot of unknowns.
Yeah, and if people want to donate, I think take the money anytime, because it's nice to know you have money in the bank when you don't know what your costs are going to be.
Exactly. And then there's going to be future additional costs for keeping the upkeep of the park, replacing the flags.
Yeah.
And they're going to be large flags because we are going to have nice sized flags, an American flag surrounded by the POW MIA and the state of Iowa flag.
You're going to have the spaceship or the Space Patrol, or is that your sixth monument?
Oh, the Space Force. Yes.
Is that what they're, because the Space Force? Okay.
Yes, that is the sixth one.
Do we have any veterans around that have been in the Space Force?
It's such a small branch that I don't think I'm not aware of any Space Force veterans at this time.
There is, I know of one former Jesup student that is in the Space Force, is all I know of.
Okay. Yeah, I have heard that.
Yeah.
And the Space Force actually has an astronaut up on the International Space Station now.
Okay. Well, good for them. I don't know.
A very specialized branch of service.
But it must be, yeah.
And they are a department of the Air Force.
Air Force, yeah.
Kind of like the...
Well, the Air Force needs help,
Well, Fritz, thank you for being with us.
Thank you very
so
much. I look forward to being on again to give you more updates.
All right,
it's always a pleasure. Thank you very much.
The Steve Brown Arts Center Podcast Network, and we're here at Cowork 591 Studio. We have the mayor of Jesup, Chris Even. Welcome back, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Thanks for, we were talking to Fritz, he's been on 4 times. How many times have you been on?
This has got to be
I think
four.
this is fourth.
I thought it was 4, maybe.
Yeah. So this is sort of a Jesup podcast, so that works out well. So how's things going at the city?
Pretty good.
Good. What do you got going on there right now? What are the guys working on right now?
We just finished up some concrete patching on the streets, and then the council approved quotes to do some crack sealing and seal coating. So that'll be coming up hopefully next month or two. Just various spots throughout town.
I saw in the minutes that some of the councilmen are talking about they want to start going more concrete on the streets. Is there a plan for that, or like we'll start here first, or?
No, not
Not
really. We've got some streets that we redone within the last probably 10 or 15 years where we put them back seal coat, but we put enough rock underneath them that we could go in there and we could take out like 4 inches of rock in the seal coat and asphalt, or go a little deeper and put concrete.
Yeah.
Those I think would probably be the ones that we would target next, just because all the underground work's done there.
Yeah.
And speaking of the city employees, you lost James and Flaherty. Have you hired people to take their place, or do you have new hires in the community, in the city?
Yeah, we hired 2 people. The one turned down the job before he even started, and then we got into our budget session and found out that we need to make some cuts. We decided not to rehire one of the positions.
And then who's the other person you hired?
Blake Fresh.
Oh, okay.
So we hired him. Originally, he was going to be the water superintendent. We hired another person to be the street superintendent. Everybody's just kind of helping fill in the street superintendent position now. It definitely wasn't what we had planned when we started hiring people, so I don't know exactly who's all going to fit in those positions. And we had just hired a new person last year, too, because our wastewater superintendent and building inspector is going to be retiring in a few years, and we need someone certified to take over for the wastewater plant.
Yeah.
So we wanted to get ahead of the game, get someone in there and get them certified. So we had just added a person, now we took another person back, and then we're looking to hire some seasonal help instead of a full-time person to
Okay.
try and save some money. So we'll hire someone in the summertime to help with the mowing, and then hopefully a seasonal person to help with some snow plowing the wintertime.
Didn't have a lot of snow to plow this year.
No, we got lucky.
They had to save on your budget there.
Yeah, we had lost both of our primary snowplow drivers, so nobody working for us really had any experience plowing streets. So I'm glad it was a gentle winter.
Yeah, it was very unbelievable.
That'd be a nightmare. Go plow the street. Okay.
Even just, the route and how they stage everything, nobody really knew because the two people that always did it were gone.
Yeah.
You should have said, you can't leave until you write this down somewhere. I remember years ago, the water guy left, and he knew where all the shutoffs were all around town, and he got into a snit with the council or whatever, so he left and didn't tell anybody where. They had a terrible time finding all those things because there was no record of them. Just this is the old guy, and he knew, but that was, 50 years ago now, but... you got to watch those guys.
Some people like to take that stuff with them.
Well, sure.
I'll never forget. I was just hired as a coach and a sub, and the AD was also the principal at the time. And he said, I was just right out of college, and I had to hand out the uniforms and order things that I needed. How do you do this? Where are the uniforms? I said, how do you ask those girls what size they are? That'd be the big thing. What size? Well, never mind. It was funny. It was so funny. Just drove me crazy. It was like first year out of college, and I didn't have a clue.
Well, and I know we should be talking to him, but Alan Wright, his favorite is everybody has the first day on the job.
Yep.
And we were over in the park. It was after Farmer's Day, and they had a trailer with bags of ice in it, and they sent the kid on Monday to pick up. And he was having a terrible time backing up and hooking up, and so Alan and I went over and helped him. And the kid was he'd never done anything like it before. And Alan said, everybody's got a first day on the job, don't worry about it, you'll do much better next time.
Yeah.
So you just have to live through those things and learn.
Exactly. Speaking of on the job, who took over the city council position for Mr. Kohei?
Cindy Gossi accepted. I guess I asked her, and she said that she would do it, so the council appointed her.
And so how does that work then? Is there a special election this fall? Does she go the whole term? How's that work?
So she will fill that vacant position until the next city election, and our next city election will be this November. I think Chad had 2.5 years left, so whoever gets appointed, it'll be a separate spot on the ballot to fill that vacant position, and that would just be for the remainder of the 2 years of that 4-year term. And we have 2 council members, I think, that are up for election.
Who's up?
Todd Rolfson and Denny Bell.
And have they indicated, are they going to run again?
I have no idea. I haven't talked to them about that.
You guys, run a good meeting. We're not on the Waterloo. Knock on wood. We're not on the Waterloo Channel 7 News every night. So
try not to be.
Yeah, that's the worst thing when they come walking in the door. There's sometimes up at school when I had controversy, and then you see the Channel 7 guy coming, and you go, oh, crap. Are you past the time when someone could petition?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yep.
So you're set. All right, that's good.
Cindy's locked in now.
Okay.
Good. So just remind our listeners who is on the city council right now, Chris.
So we have Denny Bell, Cindy Gossi, Andrew Hamilton, Craig Wright, and Todd Rolfson.
Okay. And the longest serving of all of those is Todd.
Yeah, Todd's, I think, been on and off a couple of times.
Yeah,
but
he's
this
been on
is
several years. Because he was on, then he
maybe
was off for a while.
Third term since he came back.
Yeah. What do you got going right now as mayor? What consumes your time as mayor right now, Chris?
Probably the biggest thing we got going now is we're working on a street project for this summer, which will be on Prospect Street from Hopkins to 6th Street up by the school, and then Hopkins Street, and then Ainsworth between 4th and Hopkins. So it's I think construction costs estimated to be about $1.8 million. It's a pretty good sized project.
Sure. So is that the infrastructure, like the piping and all that stuff?
It'd be replacing the water and sewer, and then the street. We're looking at a concrete street definitely on Prospect Street, and I think we're going to bid alternate for Hopkins and Ainsworth, where
Yeah.
it could be concrete or it could be asphalt.
Because Hopkins is just a couple blocks, right?
Yeah, it's only
So-
two blocks,
Yeah,
I
I think
think.
it's 2 blocks there. Yeah.
But part of that, we're looking at doing a special assessment to the property owners, where they pay for a portion of the construction cost. So there's a whole process that we just kicked off on that.
Yeah, because that's always controversial.
Yep.
Because I know in the past we've had times when they've assessed people, and other times when they said, no, we'll take care of it. And so I don't know how they determine what's the best way to go. But
What we've kind of done is like a seal coat street, and it gets paid with concrete or asphalt for the first time that it gets assessed to them.
yeah,
But after that, we've kind of treated it as maintenance. If it needs replaced, then we don't have an assess
and it's
to replace like concrete with concrete.
tricky off Prospect because one whole side is already owned by the public,
Right.
taxing the school to pay the city, which
Yep.
makes no
And
sense, I guess. But
We can do that.
Yeah, I know, but I don't know if you should or not.
The
That's up to
council, I
you,
think,
but-
has decided not to.
Yeah,
Because it is, like you said, it's all tax money.
Sure.
and
Yeah.
The school doesn't collect tax money for roads, so.
have these new laws that the legislature passed on how much you can raise your budget and this sort of thing, was it 2% or whatever? Is that hard to manage? Is it hard on you guys to figure things out, or?
We had to decrease our levy rate because of that this year. So that's part of the shortage why we end up eliminating a full-time position.
Yeah,
And we've got potentially a couple years of doing this. The state's already looking at maybe changing the property tax system again already.
yeah, see, like, if your house is worth, say, $100,000, and then they deduct a certain percentage, so you only pay taxes on like 52% or whatever,
Yeah.
they change that all the time. That's where they manipulate your property tax in many ways, is in that how much they
Yeah,
and
it's
there's a word for that, and I can't remember what
rollback.
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 And so, because when you say, well, it's going to be so much percent per 100,000, you have to realize it's not 100,000, it's 52
Right,
or
you're
whatever
only
it
getting
is. Yeah.
I don't remember. It's in the low 50s right
Yeah,
now.
but they change that, and they just do it with decimal points. Sometimes just like 0.13, and so it's not over for a lot of people. It's a lot of money, but for individuals, because sometimes well, you're going up $17 or whatever a year. Well, that's but other times you go, oh,
Right.
And the assessment of everything has gone up. I mean, I got a new assessment, and it's up quite a bit over the last
Yeah,
time. it was
I've
done.
heard between
And so-
10 and 30%
Yeah.
is pretty common.
And I don't know if it's worth that much or not, but
Well,
yeah.
people are paying for it.
Yeah, well,
people
yeah,
are buying.
housing is short supply.
Yeah.
That's
I
what's
know that,
driving
yeah.
it up is the assessors have to look at all the sales in the county, and they compare that sale amount to the assessment amount, and they got to be within a certain percentage. Otherwise, they don't look at each individual house every year, but they'll look like at a neighborhood. If that neighborhood's selling for 10% more than the assessment, then they'll increase that whole assessments for that whole neighborhood 10%. It's all
Yeah,
really based on sales. They don't have a lot of control.
yeah.
I mean, you can contest individual ones if you think your house is off, but
Chris, has the cuts that the what is it, the DOGE committee has made, have they affected the local government at all?
not Jesup at this point. There's some federal programs that we've kind of been looking at. Like we've looked at, like they had some grants for upper story housing in the downtown.
Yeah.
That was one thing that we've had some interest, maybe trying to do something here in Jesup, and I'm not sure that we're going to have that program now. It's all kind of up in the air.
Yeah. There was something about the Main Street project. Was it last year you had the people coming through looking at Main Street?
Yeah.
Is that the same organization, or is it something different?
Yep, that's through the Iowa Economic Development Authority, and they have a downtown section of that.
Yeah.
So that was just a one-day walkthrough that they did.
Yeah.
We applied for, it's kind of like a grant where they'll come in and spend a couple of days here and go into a lot more depth. We weren't awarded for this year, but
Yeah,
they
so-
said that we'll be basically they awarded us for next year because
What
they
was
didn't
the
have
award,
enough of
Chris? Forgive me.
it's, I think they value it at like $18,000.
Okay.
But they'll send some people from the state and they'll meet with the city and representatives from downtown businesses and do a really in-depth study, and then they'll present a report to the city on things that they think that we could do to improve our downtown.
So that's not what they did last year. This is different.
This is different. It's a lot more in-depth than what they did last year.
Okay.
When you're looking at, what, 5th Street to Main Street? Is that you're downtown and it's just on one side of the street?
Right, yeah.
And
so we're very kind of unique in that.
Yeah. And
Usually you either have two sides of the street or they have like a town square.
I guess I'm pessimistic, but you look at what's there and think, I don't see much room for development here. But, these guys maybe would find something. But I know Jim and I talk, we sometimes leave here 7:30, 8 o'clock at night after doing, and we look and there's not a car anywhere in those blocks. And it's just like a desolate downtown. And
there's quite a few vacant buildings downtown
yeah,
right now.
There is. And if the economy was a little different, people say, well, there's opportunity there. But right now, everybody's kind of sitting still on their money, I think. So,
yeah. Well, that brings me to my next question, Chris. Although we have Dollar General, we don't really have a grocery store. We don't have a bar. We don't have a.
How do we live?
I want to be politely say that, Dale, but even there's a bar a block and a half from my house, you guys. So.
And as I understand it, it's quite busy.
It was hopping tonight when I went by it. I thought about letting you carry the show, but anyhow, and we don't really have a sit down restaurant other than the Dairy Cone, and they're looking to sell. We can talk about you running half and I running half. A grocery bar or a grocery restaurant, in one building would be awesome, I would think.
Yeah.
With a butcher shop in there, but again, we're sort of caught. We're caught right between Independence and Cedar Rapids and Waterloo, and people work in those cities and communities.
I think that's what hurts us a lot. Is a lot of people leave town for work and they get what they need when they're in the bigger city.
Yeah.
But it's one of the nice things about Jesup, though, is there's not a lot of people coming in here every day, clogging up everything. It's a nice place to live without all the crowds and everything. So you have to kind of decide which way you're going to. I'm sure there's a nice balance somewhere, and I think it's nice that you're trying to find that with the downtown here. But
I think population-wise, we should be able to support a couple restaurants, you would think.
I'll never forget, this is years ago, one of your earlier predecessors talked about this. He said, we don't want all those people coming in here. So,
is that what I just said?
No, you weren't mayor at the time.
I you said that now? Is that what I was saying? Or?
But it is, I understand that. I had this conversation with a person this morning, They said, well, there's not a lot to do in Jesup. I said, that's what makes it, such a good place. I mean, there's plenty to do, and you can make stuff to do.
Yeah. But if you want to go howl at the moon, go somewhere else and do that and then come back here. See?
Yeah. Don't drink and drive, by the way. We're not recommending that.
Yes. In fact, don't drive at all because we don't like all that traffic.
That's right. Chris, what else do you have to tell us? I've got a question, a selfish question, but what else would you like to tell us going on in the city right now?
We did decide that May 22nd is going to be the opening date for the splash pad.
Yeah, May 22nd.
Jesup Bible Fellowship is going to serve a free meal at that again like they did last year.
Awesome. Sort of a donation meal. Yeah. I was going to ask that, and that's good. So May 22nd, ladies and gentlemen, our third artist in residence is going to be the Big Blast Brass Band this summer.
You did it real well with it.
Yeah. And we have them Aurora. We have them in Raleigh. I believe we got them in Jesup last night at the meeting, and we're looking at fourth place, and I know you've dealt with RAGBRAI. I'm thinking I'd like to put them on that roundabout island there going into Fairbank. They don't need electricity.
Yep.
There's about 8 guys to it, we talked about this on the phone last night. There's not a lot of cars. I mean, there's 10,000 bicycles. Have you ever tried to pass through Ragbri?
No, I have not.
It is a nightmare.
I would imagine so.
It is a nightmare. And so the cars would be going slow in that area. They would be safe. That's what we're thinking of the fourth venue. Do you think would the organizers be put in jail for that?
You probably want to run it by the county engineer first.
All right. We'll do that. And that's good advice.
Yeah, I would
county
imagine that
engineer.
road's going to be pretty much closed down.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. So if we put ourselves there, they'd be safe. I
I thought about this last night after talking to you. The only thing is there's no place that I can think of right now where the riders to get off their bikes and sit and listen for a while that I could think of, just, not go out and looking. So I don't know if that would be a problem or not.
There's a big farm there, right on the corner. If you look at it as a four-way intersection, it would be on the southwest corner.
Okay.
There's a nice sized farm, and I think they could go in there.
Okay.
I mean, I'd have to go talk to them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that would be the place where the bikers could go.
Okay.
They'll be that close to Fairbank. They're not going to stay long anyhow. But they've got
There are bars in Fairbanks.
there are 2 bars in Fairbank. Some of them might even make a right turn and go to Littleton
They
and go
could.
to that bar.
They could, yeah. Do you think
But-
Jesup should annex Littleton, or would that be good?
Oh, that'd be a ways away.
Tax money.
Yeah.
And you just fill in the middle, see?
Yeah.
Then Jim could be mayor.
Well, yeah, he could.
I'm not taking that title. See, I live in Chatham. And a lot of people don't realize this. I live in Chatham. The road that I live on divides Littleton and Chatham.
Yeah.
So I live in Chatham, Dale. I can't.
Just like Waterloo Cedar Falls, isn't it?
Yeah,
So-
that's right. That's right. Niall tried to talk me into taking over when he gives up the title, and I can't do it, Niall. But Chris, how goes the business? Are you staying busy? I see you're advertising for workers online. Have you
Yeah.
found a worker?
Oh, I got a couple people to help me out part-time, but I could probably still use 1 or 2 more. We're going to be quite busy this year. Celebrations up in Sumner closed down.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Did you buy in their inventory?
I didn't, but he's been referring customers to me, so
Okay. Well, that's
Good for
nice.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
good time to get in the business, I
I
guess.
guess.
That's
Yeah.
right. That's right. I'm happy for you, Chris. You've been so kind to the Steve Brown Arts Center. That we talked about this. So because Ragbri is going through Fairbank this year, I think we're going to move our efforts to Ragbri this year instead of doing the Littleton Free Watermelon Day.
Oh, okay.
Is what we're going to do
Yeah.
because it's that weekend.
Just pretty much the same day, yeah.
Yeah. So that's where we're headed. So the county engineer is my target, huh?
I would say so.
Because they would be the ones, that's a county road.
County road,
And
yep.
so
Yeah.
they would be the ones that would control that piece of land that's in there, and so
Yeah.
inside the circle. So,
That $100 might get us in there.
$100 won't get you nearly as far as it used to. You'd be surprised. So.
All right.
No, that guy's if he's the guy I think is, easy to work with.
Yeah,
and-
he's
and a good guy. So
we've worked with him with the watermelon days.
okay,
So,
yeah.
you're right. He is an easy man to work with.
Oh.
And we're not going to put those guys in danger.
Yeah.
The band in danger.
You're gonna need a
the
tarp or
bikers.
something over their heads if it's sunny day, or
We talked about this, and that's a good question. If it's hot, those horns, use a special glue. And if it's too hot, the mouthpieces don't stay on the
I didn't
horns.
realize that. Okay.
And so they won't be able to play there.
Okay.
We'd have to move their venue to Fairbank is what we would have to do, to a shady area.
Yeah.
But we're working at it. That's our last plan. We have over 100 events this year, counting the podcast.
Yeah.
Over 100 events in the Steve Brown Arts Center this year, Chris.
That'd be busy.
Yeah.
You didn't know this was an event, did you? See, when you came, you didn't know.
Anywhere where Dale is,
That's
it's an event.
an event, I tell you.
So-
The skies open up, and
Fritz had 2 meetings. What do you got going tonight? You got anything?
I got another meeting.
Do you? All right. What do you got going? Can we ask her?
Meeting on the emergency services levy.
Yeah.
I think they're going to try and put that on the ballot again in November
For the county.
for the county. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sure Independence was a little disappointed with how that went, huh?
So
Yeah.
what is Independence doing for ambulancers? They still have the same company?
Yep.
Okay.
AMR's contract, I think, expires this year, maybe.
Okay.
They're near the end of their
Oh, okay. I
original
was wondering about
contract.
that.
Where's that? Where do you see it going, Chris? I mean, I know you can't predict things, but
Oh, it almost passed the
Yeah, I
first
think
time.
it was just, less than a percentage point, right? Or-
Yep.
Yeah.
I would think the second time around it would probably pass. There was, I think, some people confused or didn't have enough information. I think we get a second run at it.
Yeah.
I would imagine it would pass pretty easy the second time.
and how does our city? I hate to say how does our city feel about it, Chris?
Well, we're very fortunate that we have volunteers,
Yes, we are.
which saves us a lot of money on the ambulance service.
Incredible.
Yeah.
So, and it's a county-wide tax, so the dollar amount's the same for everybody. So what they need to support, I guess, Independence and the rural areas is more than what Jesup needs. And the way the tax itself is set up, it all comes into the county. But they were looking at doing like a 20/80 agreement or something with the city to guarantee that we get our share of that money.
That's the way I understood it from the way they explained it.
Yeah.
For the lax election, is that whenever Jesup needed something, that money would be there
Yeah.
for them. And so,
And we're not putting enough money away right now for equipment. We've kind of always stayed at what it used to be, and the cost of an ambulance has probably doubled in
yeah.
10
Yeah.
years since we bought the last one.
Yeah,
So we
because they
need-
gave us a number last year. They talked about a number, and the ambulance itself. Then, if you wanted it equipped, it was
Yeah.
whole bunch more. And so, yeah, it's a lot of
And
money.
even, we've got power cots and a lot of other really expensive equipment that's getting toward the end of its lifetime. So, yeah, we could definitely use it, and I think we could do a little bit, some stipends or something for volunteers to reimburse them for their
Right.
little bit of their time
Is
without
it-
going to a paid service.
Yeah. God forbid there's ever an emergency in town, but where's the emergency headquarters if there's ever an emergency, a tornado or something like that in town?
So we have, it's not officially a storm shelter, but the basement of City Hall, we have a tornado warning. The City Hall doors should be open so people go down in the basement. It's got a core slab floor over the basement, so it's pretty protected down there.
Yeah,
As I
yeah.
understand, it was supposed to be a storm shelter, suitable to be a storm shelter, like we always talk about Farmers Day. If you had, a couple thousand
Yeah.
people in the park there, they need someplace to go. They don't have a
To
house
be,
there, and so
it won't qualify for a FEMA
Yeah.
definition of a storm shelter.
But it'd be
it would have cost a lot more to meet all those requirements, but it's a safe space
it'd
to
be
go
a safe
to.
place to go, is the way I understood.
Yeah.
The way
Yeah.
they built it. You could cram a lot of people in there for like a 10-minute
Yeah.
tornado thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's where you go, Gillespie.
Okay. All right. Well, and that's what I figured you
Yeah.
guys would go to, sort of a headquarters to deal with that sort of thing.
Yep. The fire department, they would operate out of the emergency services facility. That's where all their radios and stuff are at, but it's probably not the best place to be if there's a tornado. So I
Right.
wouldn't recommend anybody else going there.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Well, Mr. Mayor, thank you as always for coming in and
Thank you
appreciate
very
it. We're
much.
sorry we kept you waiting a few
No,
minutes.
that's fine.
Fritz gets wordy sometimes.
Is that what you think? Okay. We
We
should
get
listen
worried.
to this podcast with a stopwatch and see who talks the most. See? But I'm not going to say anything.
All right. Well, Chris, thanks for coming in.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Welcome back to the Steve Brown Arts Center Podcast Network. We're at Cowork 591 Studios in beautiful downtown Jesup. Thanks to Mayor Chris Even and Fritz Kies for coming in tonight. We've got a few things to talk about. We were talking about what our mothers cooked and what we enjoyed. My mother and father were products of the Depression, and so we had a lot of Depression food. I mean, it was stuff that they ate during the Depression, and so I did some research, and I want to talk about stuff they ate during the Depression. Then I want to talk about a 6-course meal.
Okay.
So like one thing they ate during the Depression was called wacky cake.
Okay.
Wacky cake is recipes taken from a specific person to love, as it's made without butter, milk, or eggs, and most bakers know are usually necessary for baking an actual cake. You need those ingredients. However, this cake is made from water, oil, vinegar, and vanilla extract as its wet ingredients. The result is surprisingly moist and dense cake that is quite good, although it's also called Depression cake.
Okay. I don't think we ever had that.
Okay. Baked beans.
Okay, we had those.
Yes, we did too, a lot. A simple side dish, but one that's coming back nonetheless. Baked beans are most commonly seen at cookouts. However, they are now coming back as a popular pantry staple and are being served alongside steak, chicken, fish. I love them with my fish.
Yeah, I do.
And pork and beans. They're incredibly affordable, but it's likely its easiness in preparing them that makes the beans so attractive.
Yeah.
You can microwave.
Yeah. No, my mother used to buy those bags of the white beans.
The navy beans.
Yeah, navy beans. And
Yep.
she had to go through because there was little rocks or something in there.
Yeah.
And then she would boil those up. And then she'd keep enough so she could have bean soup. And the rest of it she'd put in a pan and put the ketchup and all this stuff in to make baked beans. And she'd put strips of bacon across the top and bake that, and they were really good. So
She did that with the navy beans.
navy beans, yeah.
That's
We never had. I guess we probably had canned pork and beans sometime, but usually she made it from scratch. You know, just bought the beans and started from there. So
that sounds wonderful. They get their name from the U.S. Navy. The U.S. Navy used to serve a lot of beans.
The Army gets the gravy and the Navy gets the beans.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Commonly served on the home front, it was made with carrots, onions, garlic, and usually, of course, ham. You know, you talked about your bacon. Ham kept well and added a meaty and salty flavor, making this soup protein packed and giving it flavor despite simple ingredients.
And sometimes the ham, it was just, that round bone that's in a ham steak.
Yep.
They would just cut that round bone out and throw it in there when they cooked the beans, and that was the flavoring for it.
There you go.
So.
Yep. The next one is potato soup. Now, today my potato soup is a lot of milk, a lot of butter, a lot of cheese.
Oh yeah.
It's thick potato soup. But in the old days, it was fairly bland. The families depended on it due to the fact that the potatoes were one of the vegetables that were all readily available in the gardens.
Yeah.
Easy to raise. Nowadays, this soup is so spruced up. You can put ham in there too. And I love potato soup, but it was basically water and potatoes back in the Depression.
Yeah.
And then finally, Dad called it Johnny Cake. It was cornbread.
We had cornbread.
Yeah, cornbread during the Depression was made only with cornmeal, salt, and water. Very similar to Depression-era bread, but without the yeast.
Yeah.
And this made the bread far more dense as it would rise without the yeast, but it was delicious counterpart to any meal.
Yeah. No, my brothers and I, when we get together, we laugh about some of the things my mother cooked.
Yeah.
But one of the meals she would boil up a big pot of elbow macaroni, and she'd drain it out. Then she'd take quart jars of tomatoes that she had canned, dump it in there, stir it up, and that was supper.
Mom did the same thing. Yeah, you must have lived in my house.
Probably that was, and so there was no meat, it was just macaroni with that tomato stuff, canned tomatoes in it. So, but we ate it, no problem. So,
but now I had a friend that had a fundraiser, and they had a 5-course meal. I always heard of a 6-course meal, and the 6-course meal is wonderful in my mind. For our listeners, there are 12-course meals, 10-course meals, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, and 3-course meals. Obviously,
try to stand over a sink and eat those, though.
Yeah. But I want to talk about a 6-course meal.
Okay.
A 6-course meal.
Depression meal or just a meal?
No, this is a modern day. This is Eating Uptown.
Okay.
With Dale Rueber and Jim Gillespie and
All
Blake,
right.
Blake Tempus. Eating Uptown.
I think
Okay.
Blake would be expensive to feed.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, that's why we're having a 6-course meal. The dinner includes, starts with an hors d'oeuvre, then a soup, an appetizer. You cleanse your palate with a salad. Then you have the main course, and then a dessert. So when you do this, you usually choose a theme for your meal. Like my friend, he did the Land of Corn theme. Talked
Okay.
about the railroad.
Yeah.
From 1870 or 1880 to 1970. And he served food that was served on that railroad.
Oh, in the dining car.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Along
That's a
the
nice
route.
idea.
Yeah. So he chose a theme. You decide on a season or a region. So it was the Midwest. And you build around the main course. So I believe his main course was pork tenderloin grilled out,
Okay.
is what it was.
Okay.
Okay. Tips for serving a full course meal: provide water and wine. When I was in France, for all 6 courses, we had a different wine and a different cheese with each course.
Yeah, I've heard that.
Yeah, and wonderful. Maybe the greatest meal I ever had.
Yeah.
They talk about pay attention to the table setting. So each course requires distinct dinnerware and silverware. What's the rule with your silverware, Dale?
Oh, well, you eat from the outside in.
Correct.
Yeah,
Yes.
okay.
Very good.
Yeah.
You have etiquette, Dale.
I know.
You have etiquette.
I took a course. So.
Yeah. Remember utensil etiquette, as I said. Removal of plates before moving on the next course. Remove the dishes from the previous course. Be prompt. Don't wait too long
Yeah.
between course.
Oh, yeah.
Although a meal is meant to, this kind of meal is meant to last a little bit. You don't want it lasting all night.
Yeah.
Know when to clear the plates. Additional etiquette: staff should clear each plate from the right side. So serve over clear from the right side, serve over the left
Yeah,
side.
serve from the left. Yeah.
Yep. If you don't have a staff, ask the guests to pass their dishes, is what you do. Then you choose a charger plate. It acts as a base setting for the dinnerware. If you were going to have a 6-course meal, this would be a type. You could have a potato soup, mozzarella sticks, or some kind of cheese. The main meal being chicken or pork or steak. The salad, ice cream. My favorite ice cream dish, and this is what I would serve for an ice cream dish, would be fudge sundae ice cream
Okay.
with chocolate fudge in the ice cream.
I think whenever I was at anything kind of formal like that, they had, usually it was sherbet with a little wafer, a
Yes.
little thin wafer, vanilla wafer cracker. Not a vanilla wafer, but, the stick, like,
Yep.
stuck in there. And so,
And
because
then
that was light.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, and then a selection of cheeses.
Yeah.
Now, and I was researching this, and if you just do one wine and the water, you can get a meal like that for about 170. If you do the 6 wines and 6 cheeses,
Yeah.
it's going to cost you about $350 a person.
Okay. So when you're eating the pork chop, all you have is the pork chop, right? That's the
Yes.
core. You eat that, and then, yeah.
That is written. Then,
And see, I was brought up, you have a bite of potato, a bite of meat, a bite of corn, you have all 3. That's the way I was brought up. But yeah, those can take a while.
They can.
Yeah.
I had a meal in a castle in Ireland, and they started with mead, bread, and you dip the bread in salt.
Okay.
Made that mead taste so good.
Yeah.
And then we went to the potato soup. You ate the meal with your hands. The whole meal was with your hands. So you
Okay.
drank the soup out
Yeah.
of the. Then they came with asparagus.
You had asparagus spears with finger food? Okay.
Yeah, with finger food. Then we had the giant chicken legs.
Okay.
And then we had, I can't remember what we had for dessert, so
Yeah.
it would have been a 5-course meal.
Yeah. I needed extra napkins if they had to
Oh,
chicken with
I
my
was a
hand.
mess. I'm a mess anyhow, Dale.
Is
Yeah.
that where they have a plate? Each course, they set another plate on top of that plate.
Yeah.
Okay. The first time I saw that, I had no idea what was going on. Oh, here's my plate, But then they came and put something else on top of another plate, and so I was confused. But I got to figure it out.
Then you finish. They bring you a little tiny bowl, a snuff type of ingredient, and you put that snuff on your finger and inhale it to clear your palate.
Oh,
Is what it is.
does everybody sneeze or?
It was fun. We traveled with usually female basketball teams. It was funny watching the females inhale that snuff. I'm not going to do that. One of them would do it. Of course, all of them would decide to do it. So that's 6-course meal. I thought of doing that for a fundraiser.
Yeah, that would take a lot of work.
It would.
A lot of dishes if you had a good crowd.
Yeah.
Do you ever do the? I won't say rah, but where you have dessert at one, or you have say wine and hors d'oeuvres at one house, and then you drive to the next house and have the salad and. Where it's everybody. There's a word for it. I can't.
Yeah.
But those are kind of fun.
What's that called? It's like a
Rotation
poker
meal
run,
or
poker run,
or rotation
It's-
meal or something.
Yeah.
But I've been involved with some of those before. I was in a wedding in Pico Rivera, California, and the rehearsal dinner was at this very, very fancy restaurant.
Yeah.
And we were. There was 6 of us Marine. One Marine was getting married, and we had the 5 of us. So we were having a good time.
Yeah.
And but we got in there, and they had this huge roast at the beginning, and they had a chef there with his very fancy hat, whites, and his knife, and he would say, "How would you like your roast beef?" And you would say rare. He would cut it off of this side.
Right.
If it said well done, he'd cut it off the other side. Medium was, and we all looked at. We had never seen anybody could cook a roast. And have it be 3 different.
Right.
It was just very.
Oh wow!
But it was very interesting, and that's what I remember because they had the first time we were at a champagne fountain.
Yeah.
We all got pretty happy after the wedding with a champagne fountain. I thought, well, I don't know if I could live like this or not, but it was a very fun time. And then the groomsmen and the bridesmaids all went out on the beach.
Yeah.
And the next day we all went to Disneyland in Anaheim, and so it was just one of the most memorable weekends of my life, my single life. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. So.
Yeah. If I talked to a fundraiser yesterday. That's a lot of this came from discussion with her yesterday. She's trying to talk me into doing an onion ring or a pizza poker run. Mm-hmm. Because I don't want people drinking and driving.
Yeah.
I don't want to do a beer.
Yeah. No, I agree.
And we have no bar in town anymore. Mm-hmm. It is. And so she said, well, 5 pizza places in the area, like start at Joe's in either Jesup or Independence, go to Owine and go to Fairbank, or go to Reedland and go to what's the
Orange over there, but Denver maybe.
what's the one right here on Old 20 going to Waterloo?
Raymond.
Go to Raymond.
Yeah.
And then come home. That's 5. And if you have 4 people in your car, everybody have 1 piece of pizza.
Yeah.
And then you each can take home a piece of pizza from the place, and you can have half a pizza. By the end of the night, you can have half a pizza, to take home with you.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it's not going to be that expensive because you're only going to have, each of you, if you go to 5 places, you're going to buy 5 pizzas. Mm-hmm. So it's basically you're going to buy 1 pizza.
Yeah. And see, the purpose of it is to introduce people to all these pizza places, or
and raise money for the Steve Brown Arts Center.
Yeah.
Another thing she recommended was have an onion ring run. And that's a lot cheaper than a pizza run.
Sure.
You could buy a basket of onion rings for $8. So now you do it 5 times. You're only spending $10 for the night, and then I'm sure you might have a beer or a Pepsi or something. But that's going to be a fairly inexpensive night. And I like onion rings.
Yeah. Oh, the best onion rings are, it's called Gordy's Hi-Hat. It's an old-fashioned kind of diner in Cloquet, Minnesota.
Cloquet.
Yeah, and they are, if you order, I know the first time I was there, I thought I was going to have onion rings, and the guy, well, you probably just want a half order.
Yeah.
I said, okay, and a half order is a lot. And they have bags of onions outside that they don't have room for, and they're just huge, big onions, and they're just delicious. And so I would recommend you go up there and buy a bag of their onions to cook. So, but
if I do go to a new restaurant and I've never eaten there before and they have onion rings, I do get their onion rings.
Yeah.
So, all right, this is Steve Brown Arts Center Podcast Network. That's your culinary delight for the evening. Dale, what do you have?
Well, I got a question of the day for you.
Okay.
Okay, the Uber drivers, there's a lot of them.
Yep.
Okay. What's the most common object in the last year that they have found in the back seat of their car after passengers leave?
I would say a bottle of water.
Okay. No, it's phones.
Oh.
1.7 million of them were left behind in Uber cars the last year, is what the number they gave on the report. Isn't that amazing?
That is amazing.
But they say they found gold Rolex watches. They found breast milk in bottles. It's amazing. They had a big long list of the stuff that's left behind, but phones were by far the most popular item that people leave behind, because I suppose everybody that gets in there has one.
Yeah, yeah.
And so, which makes sense. And Fritz mentioned the nightly news, or the gambling. We talked about sports betting last week.
Yes.
Well, there was on the 8th of April, NBC Nightly News did a story, and again, they talked about young men. They said from 18 to 34, serious problem for a lot of them. $3.1 billion were bet just on the men's and women's March Madness teams. And they said that bankruptcies and divorces are a big problem out of all this. And they talked to this one kid, and a friend of his got into gambling. And he says the guy always would tell him how much he won, but he never told how much he lost, which is, a bad sign. But over a 17-month period, he lost $40,000 and ended up committing suicide. And and we talked about this last week, but a year after his death, his email account was still getting messages from the sports betting sites wanting him to get more involved with it. And so it is a huge problem. And I think my financial advisor is involved with that, because he called and asked if he could borrow $20, and so I thought, this is terrible. But anyway, I should have kept it serious. But anyway, This is a serious problem, and it might be something for parents to keep an eye on. And this one kid that they interviewed, he had to put all his finances in his mother's name so he wouldn't lose all his money. Because he says, it's such a terrible compulsion and addiction to get involved with. So President Trump, he has that MAGA hat, those MAGA hats.
Yeah.
Well, now he got a new hat called MAGDA that he's wearing. MAGDA says, "Make America Great Depression Again." Let's see. I thought I should throw that out.
See, as you mentioned earlier, I don't think we were on air that he has put a stop to the majority of
90 days.
90 days stop.
But he's leaving China on.
Yeah.
And the 10% across the board one is still on, but these extra supplementary, or what do you call them, tariffs he just put on, those are suspended for 90 days, but there's still the 10%. So I have to see. And of course, that was the plan all along, some of his financial advisors were saying. But, and again, they were interviewing a guy, and he said wanted to bring the factory to make the phones. Mm-hmm. And he said they have these huge factories, and people, they have 12 tiny little screws they have to put in each one of these phones to make the phone, put the components together. And the guy said, I don't think you're going to find thousands of Americans that are going to sit for 8 hours a day putting tiny little screws in all day long. And so it's nice to bring all these factories back. What kind of work are they going to be doing, and who wants to do that kind of work? But the thing is, it takes years to get a huge kind of factory up and running. And if this is all done just on executive order, well, then those can change just willy-nilly.
Yeah.
And so people, especially now, are not going to trust. You know, it's a real problem, is how far to get into this new economic system that he's thinking he wants to try, when you don't really know, is this serious, or is this just something to make the other countries nervous so they'll give us more or whatever? I don't know, but a serious kind of thing. So
I heard one report, and I don't know if this report is true, so I am putting the caveat on that. Caveat.
one of those.
One of those. Tomato.
It's not caviar, I know that.
Oh.
Okay.
Salt and pepper, tomatoes. But supposedly the Trump family sold $750 million worth of stock the day before.
See, I was wondering about that. I thought about that today, if anybody in the Trump administration sold a bunch of stock before this all went public. And so $700 million worth?
$750 million.
They call it insider trading, see, and that's
Yes,
against
they
the
do.
law.
The senator's been doing that for years.
Oh,
Dave.
yeah, well, that's how they make their big money. That's
Yeah.
why they want to be a senator, because it's so easy to make money, because you have all that inside information.
Yeah.
So
And that is insider trading. I never did understand how they could do that.
yeah, well, they have all these committee hearings where they have CEOs coming in and talking about what they're going to do in the future and this and that, and then they use that information to get in or get out. And they say Nancy Pelosi made hundreds of millions of dollars. They say she must be the best stock picker in the world, but she was in all those meetings. And again, that's been reported. That's nothing new that I'm telling you. So, all right, I have another question for you. You ready? You done with this topic?
I'm ready.
Okay. Is it better to be the oldest person at the gym or the youngest person in the nursing home?
The oldest person is the gym.
I think you're right too. I'm telling my grandkids keep laughing at me about losing my memory, but they won't be laughing in December when they don't find any eggs underneath the Christmas tree.
In December, huh?
Yeah, a Mega Millions ticket now costs $5. Did you hear that?
Really?
Yeah, they raised it to $5. They want to have bigger things, and so now even losing money is more expensive than it used to be. See, so.
No kidding. $5 for a Mega Million.
Yeah, they want to have more billion-dollar. So people want the big jackpots.
Yeah.
And see, I always thought, okay, you say, all right, this Friday we sold X number of tickets, so we have $60 million to give away. So we keep drawing till we find, 60 people and give them each $1 million. But they say people won't buy tickets, then they want to win, $1 billion or $500 million. I think, man, that's a lot of work managing that kind of money.
That is.
So I don't know.
Dale, you realize, and I talked about this on the show before, the lotto was set up to bring tax money in to help.
Yeah, bring taxes down, property taxes especially.
Property taxes
and to aid the school. Yeah,
but they didn't say so. So instead of that, let's say they make $6 million. Of that $6 million they make, the school gets 600,000 of them.
Yeah.
The rest goes to the general fund or goes to the whatever they call that money,
pet projects, and that sort of thing. Yeah, no, it's no good. I wanted to talk a little bit about Ted Cruz also.
Yes,
I talked about the Ted Cruz jinx. And this was on Jimmy Kimmel last night, and then it was again on the internet this morning. Ted Cruz is a senator from Texas, and Houston, Texas, was playing in the final game in the NCAAs. Well, the last, I had the number down here, the last 7 events in a row, important events involving Texas teams, Ted Cruz has been in every one of them, and they have lost every one of them. The Texas team has lost. So the last 2 weeks, there was a petition in Texas for people to sign saying, Ted Cruz, please don't come to the final game if Houston is playing in the NCAAs. Well, they said last night the Houston Examiner, whatever the newspaper is, put a blurb out on the internet that Ted Cruz was at the game. At that point, Houston had a 12-point lead. Well, they ended up losing the game to Florida by 2 points. And so people are very upset with Ted Cruz. They say it's the Ted Cruz jinx. And so they're trying to get him to stay away from the Texas ball games. And so I thought that was very interesting because for several reasons, I don't like cruising, so I thought that was something. So, school, some golf matches this week. The 14th, they're at Sumner Fredericksburg. The 15th, they're at BCLUW. And the 17th, they're at the North Iowa Cedar League Triangular at Dyke. So there's a lot of golf. And the track, the Jesup boys are having their meet the 15th up here.
Okay.
The Jesup Boys Invitational, and they do need helpers. So if any of you are listening to this and would like to help at the track meet, they do need helpers of all kinds.
That's tomorrow, ladies and gentlemen.
And then the 17th is the Hudson Relays, always a big track meet. And then the 17th is also the Lady Wolverines Invitational at Dyke.
Okay.
And so
And that's
kind of going on
nice
at the
size
school. Yeah.
Okay.
I tell you, I learned yesterday at Farmers Day, this carnival. Now this is our secondary carnival guy because of the date change.
Yes.
And the same guy was here last year, but he's bringing 3 newer rides that weren't here last year, and one of them is a double Ferris wheel.
Okay.
And so the rides will be even better than they were last year. And then the next year we'll be back to our July dates.
A double Ferris.
A double Ferris wheel is supposed to be coming.
Trying to picture that.
Yeah, well, you've got 2 wheels,
Yes.
and they
yes.
go up and down. And yeah,
Been a long time since I rode a Ferris wheel.
Yeah.
I might have to ride one this year.
yeah. The last time I rode a Ferris wheel was where a friend of mine, he had 2 kids, and he said, "My kids want to ride the Ferris wheel. Would you ride it with them?" And I said, "Okay." So I did, but that's the last time I rode a Ferris wheel, I think. Also, Farmers, we're having the Pork Chop Review, and this is quite an interesting. It's a show. It's beyond 2, 3, 4 times, a couple times on Thursday, then I don't know, Friday and Saturday more times. But this has been on one of these America's Got Talent kind of shows, a winner or one of those. And
Yeah.
it's big time. I think they're from the Carolinas, one of the Carolinas, but a big time show.
And what are you calling it?
It's the Pork Chop Review. That's what it's called.
And
You
what
can-
do they do in it?
These pigs entertain you.
Okay. Okay.
So you can look it up online, I guess. But they, I do quite a thing. So, and then the Steve Brown Arts Center is sponsoring the Brass Blast Brass Band, and they'll be performing Friday on the big main stage. Hopefully 2 to 3:30 is what we'd like.
Okay.
Okay. And then that gives 30 minutes for the next act to get their stuff on stage and get ready to go. So, but we're looking forward to that. And then also there's going to be a huge art show in the gazebo on Saturday from noon to 6. And so they'll be on the bottom level and the top level where the Steve Brown Arts Center will have multiple
Multiple
works of art
pieces.
for you to look at. I don't know if they're for sale or just...
It will be up to the artist.
Okay.
The artist will label
so there'll
it
be several
for
different
sale.
artists will be displayed.
Yeah, yes.
Okay, so that sounds really good. So.
The pieces have to be no larger than 5 by 7. And they had one of these down in Marion. They had sculptures, they had paintings, they had photographs. I'm excited for this day. This is our first real artist, and to have that at the Jesup Farmers Day has always been my dream.
Yeah. Okay.
So and we don't need the good part about it is we don't need the whole area.
Yeah.
We don't need a large amount of volunteers. We can have them bring it in days earlier and leave them with Kelly here at
Sure.
591 Studio, and I'm really excited about that day.
Okay. Well, that sounds good.
Yeah.
So that'll be great. So, all right. That's all I need to talk about today.
All right. Well, this is Steve Brown Arts Center Podcast Network. This past weekend we had an independent show at the Littleton Chatham Historical Society at their pancake breakfast, and we had a private showing of art there. It was a local private collection, and it was very eclectic, different wooden sculpture, paintings, and photographs. So it was a nice crowd.
Yeah.
Tony always does such a nice job at the Littleton Chatham Historical Society.
Yeah. They are so lucky to have him.
They are.
He does a lot. And for several years he's been
He
doing
has.
this. Yeah.
He has. Tony is a great historian. He is. I'm so fortunate to have him as a neighbor out by where I live. Other events that we have left in April. We have the Artist Collaborative that we talked about, April 28th, And then that's all we have for April because of Easter this month.
Yeah.
So Easter's coming up this next weekend, Dale.
Gets here fast, doesn't it?
It does.
Yeah.
It does.
Yeah.
So, did you have anything else to share, Dale?
No, I think I'm good. So-
All right. Well, don't forget Judy Frotsky's art in it is in M's Coffee, being displayed. I'm proud to say Judy was featured on the front page of the Independence Bulletin Journal this past week. Remember, I'm looking to meet artists, and if you have an artist that you would like to introduce me to, or you're an artist, give me a call. Or contact me at jim@stevebrownartcenter.org or call 319-290-0241 and leave a message. Somebody was asking about the next jam session. The next jam session is going to be in May. If you have news or would like to sponsor us, email us at jim@stevebrownartcenter.org or call 319-290-0241. or leave a message. I'm Jim Gillespie with co-host Dale Rueber and producer Blake Tempus. As always, thanks to Kelly C. Haas. She's so very kind to us. Thanks to the audience for bringing these stray dogs into your life. And remember, each day is about little victories.